Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous podcast with your host, Bruce Hutcheon. This is episode number 111.
Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous podcast, where it is all about whitetail deer hunting tips, techniques, and the stories so you can become a more successful whitetail deer hunter. And now your host, Bruce Hutcheon.
Brandon Hammond grew up in a small town in southern Michigan. And like many in Michigan, he cut his teeth on whitetail hunting at an early age, around 10 years old. And since that, my love for whitetails has never gone away. He's been more than fortunate to hunt whitetails in several states and continues to do so every year.
Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, Bruce Hutcheon, and I'm excited to be heading into Michigan today with Brandon Hammond. Now, Brandon has his own podcast where he shares about bow hunting, and it's Take Aim Outdoors, the Bowhunters podcast. And also in the warm-up, he just shared that he's aligned with Outdoor Podcast Channel. So, Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Bruce. I appreciate you having me today.
Now, I'm very interested, and I'm sure our listeners are interested. What's this group you've got going called Outdoor Podcast Channel? Let's spend a couple minutes on that.
Yeah, I'd love to. The Outdoor Podcast Channel was a idea. There's a few co-founders of the channel, and probably all of us are on the network. So there's a few shows, and some of them you may have heard of, like mine, Take Aim, but there's the Big Buck Registry, there's Hunt Fish Travel, there's Up North Journal, Fish Nerds, the Turkey Hunting Podcast, and Bow Hunting Freedom, which I believe you were a guest on, Bruce.
Yes.
So all these channels, we kind of, podcasts, I should say, just came up with the idea of like, hey, let's start a network where we will be under one, signified place, and that RSS feed will play. Mine's Take Aim Tuesday, and then, Phil's on Wednesday, Carrie's on Friday, that sort of thing. So a new podcast comes right through your iTunes podcast app or your Stitcher or whatever, outlet you decide to use, or you can go to the outdoorpodcastchannel.com. But you get to hear a new, different show every day, from turkey hunting to fishing to bow hunting to deer stories and so on. So we just added 2 new shows this week that just got dropped in the RSS feed, and we're super excited to keep growing this.
Why do you think podcasting, especially in the outdoor industry, is really starting to take off?
I truly believe it's obviously it's a new outlet. It's something that in our busy lives today, it's basically on demand. So, it really reminds me, Bruce, of having a magazine, and you can throw it in your truck, you have it at your coffee table. It's that type of relationship, I believe, that people have with podcasts. But it's in the car, it's on the treadmill, it's sitting on your lunch break at work. It's that same thing that people used to do with magazines, but they do it now with podcasts. And I just think it relates, and it's even on the other side of the industry, I think they're just going to gravitate to it because it's the same thing as a magazine. It's print, and they used to strive all the time in the outdoor industry, print for advertisements. Well, it's the same thing. You can go back now and listen to this show with Bruce and Brandon a year from now, and there's value to that. So I just think it relates to people. People love to hear stuff plugged into those earbuds, right into their ears, and I just see the sky's the limits for podcasters, and especially this time in the outdoor industry. The shows that are here and established, it's just a really good time for these podcasters. I love it.
Yeah, and I do too. That's why we're doing this, and you've read my bio, and I've got some experience, but I want to share the knowledge, and I talk about the tradition of hunting, family, and friends, and if we can encapsulate those thoughts into the podcast, then I think no matter who you are or what you're bringing to the table as far as the aspect of hunting, there is certainly room to grow. Would you agree to that?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the cool thing about it is your show's not going to be like mine, and mine's not going to be like Karizoka's, and so on and so on and so on. And we don't have to be the same, and we don't have to base all the shows on just giving tips. Some of these shows can be relationship-based. Some can be towards mentoring. Some can be towards conservation. It's endless, and I think that's, you can't fit the stuff we do in a 22-minute TV show on the Sportsman's or the Outdoor Channel.
No, and that's true. Let's key on, you just mentioned the word conversation. I know you firmly believe in that. You're passionate about that. So let's expand that for our listeners.
Absolutely. For all of us, it's just a dire time. We're sadly not so much in the Midwest, but I'm hearing it quite a bit out west, kind of by you, Bruce, that some of the state and federal lands are going to start coming up for sale. And, I just urge everybody, if you're not a part of a group, to get a part of a group and try to combat some of these, government lands that can go up for sale. And we're about the only country in the world that has this kind of land that is open to the public. So I think we're kind of sleeping on the fact that this could be taken away from us, and we're sleeping on the fact that we're just so used to having it. So I just urge everybody, if you're not a part of the Mule Deer Foundation, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, whatever it may be, get online and just become a member, even if it's Safari Club. But any of these groups are standing up and trying to save our public lands, which, guys, we know without public land, that's loss of habitat, and it's less hunting grounds for all of us. That's a scary thought.
Yeah, I'll throw in Whitetails Unlimited out of Sturgeon Bay, and then QDMA, they're out of Georgia, who, are advocates, and through QDMA, they have National Deer Alliance. Craig Doherty is the executive director. National Deer Alliance costs nothing. Just sign up, because it is important. And what Brandon is saying is absolutely true. I can almost see land that people want to get and privatize it, and it's Forest Service land, and they want it privatized so they can develop it. Pure and simple. And it's an issue, and it's not an issue for the people so much west of the Mississippi, but east of the Mississippi, but you get west of the Mississippi, and it's a huge problem that any hunter that hunts out west should be concerned about. Thanks for that, Brandon. Let's talk about bow hunting. You've been a bow hunter for a long time. The Bowhunters podcast is part and parcel of Take Aim Outdoors. Let's talk about the development of that podcast.
Sure. A couple things happened is I was working with a friend on a different podcast and kind of just doing background stuff. And a network launched and asked me to jump on board and just ask, hey, would you do it, a podcast? So I came up with the idea to do Take Aim Outdoors, and I wanted, I kind of looked around at the time and just saw, a podcast that did, covering the sport of archery, and one that just did total archery tips, and one that just did deer tactics. Well, I wanted one that just kind of talked about bow hunting, and I wanted one that encompasses that. And what encompasses a lot of bow hunting is the industry. It's the gear we use and the people in it. So I just kind of rolled all that together, and that's what Take Aim is. So we have guests from the industry on the show, and we have, we cover the bow hunting season. We actually do a mini series from October to December. We call it In Season, and we talk about every week of bow hunting. So whether it's the start of October, the October lull, into the pre-rut, to the rut, we cover it all and just kind of give the rundown, during the season. And then, as soon as hunting's over, we jump right into ATA, and then we get back with guests, within the industry and other bow hunters from around the country.
Let's talk about ATA and the importance to the archery industry, the archery hunter. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. I mean, for those that don't know, it's called the Archery Trade Association. The show comes every year in January, and for all of us that know Bruce, it's like this superstore. It's a Toys R Us for bow hunting and archery gear. So it's a neat event. It's 3 days. This year it's going to be in Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm not going to lie, I look forward to it every year. I love to touch gear, look at gear, talk about gear, and get firsthand knowledge from the sales reps, from the design engineers. And, again, that's part of what I love to do with Take Aim is pass that stuff along, because any piece of gear like that makes my life easier and your life easier as a bow hunter, why would I not use it or try to pass that along to somebody else that could benefit from it?
AndLl just echo that. Who's who? You can go from any kind of gear to clothing to people who are in the writing industry. And we talked about something in the warm-up, and this is a good segue into that. The outdoor industry is huge, but it's really a small community. Can you talk about your 10 years working hard to get into the industry and really what it takes to do that? Because I know we got listeners out there that want to break in, want to do what I'm doing, want to do what you're doing, or something else in the industry. So can you illuminate that a little bit, Brandon?
Sure. 10 years ago, about 11 years ago, I believe it was 2004, I was using the product that I just picked up at a trade show and expo. I killed a bunch of deer that year, basically sent them some pictures, just said, hey, thanks, great product. They were like, hey, we're going to do Almighty Pro Staff. And so that was my forte in the outdoor industry. So I'm thankful to this day for that. But, as Bruce kind of led into, it's not all sugar and candy. It is, I'll be straight honest with you. It's hard, it's cutthroat, it's demanding, and you have to keep going every single day. And whether it's, this position or that position, just be true to who you are, be always honest, do the right thing, and there will always be a spot for you once you get in the door. But the industry has a great way of weeding people out that don't need to be here, and it seems to continue to do that. But as far as the almighty goal, Bruce, I'm still looking for that and still striving to, say, hey, I have an income and a full-time job from the outdoor industry. I don't, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop or have fun trying to get there. So, like I said, once you find a niche, you can work hard and keep working hard, because this industry continues to evolve constantly. So you got to be on your game all the time and always got to be working. Otherwise, you like I said, the industry has a great way of just fading people away.
Well said. And listeners, take notes on that. You set your goals. You decide what niche in the industry you want to be, and you can get in touch with myself or Brandon or anybody in the industry, especially the people doing podcasts. They'll talk to you and they'll help you, but they're not going to do the work for you. It's just not going to happen. And it's a great industry, but it's going to take the best you to get involved in it and to sustain yourself. And like Brandon said, he's got a full-time job, but yet he has a passion for what he's doing. So I salute you, Brandon, on that. Let's talk about whitetails. This is Whitetail Rendezvous, and a rendezvous is where a bunch of people get together and share stories and trade and just talk about the hunting tradition, their friends and their families. So let's just jump right in and talk about your whitetail experience starting around 10 years old.
For sure. Like many Michiganders, Michigan is just very passionate about their deer. We're not passionate by any means about big deer, but we are passionate about deer. And just got the opportunity when I was really young. A stepfather took me deer hunting, about 10 years old. in Michigan, I couldn't hunt till I was 12, but so I went for 10 and 11 and just went and kind of got to be part of camp and part of tradition. And, I don't know what it was, Bruce, but, it's just, for some of us, it kind of clicks naturally. And I think back all the time from 10 to 20, how I thought deer hunting was just sitting on a trail. Honestly, they're just, in the 90s, we didn't have the internet out and we didn't have all this media to kind of tell us, how to hunt, or you didn't get the opportunity to just meet so-and-so celebrity that's killed 50 Pope and young deer. But needless to say, I've just never stopped and grew with the sport as the sport itself grew. And, was just super excited to say I came from that, and I've shot, multiple Pope and young deer with a bow. I've shot a 170. Not that it's all about score, but, I never quit. I kept learning, and, you got to set goals for yourself. And I knew that Michigan didn't have again, not about score, but I just would gladly shoot a deer that's a 7-pointer that's 7.5 versus sitting here for 90 days in Michigan and only getting to see maybe a 130-inch deer a year. So, again, guys, it comes down to work and just don't stop, man. If you guys want to achieve something, but man, I'm tore up with whitetails, Bruce. I'm getting off track, but you got to constantly work at it. But super excited to at least start it in that tradition with a camp. And now, I do the same thing with my son. He's 8, and he's gone to opening day with me already. And, we just pop up a double bowl, and I get that much enjoyment out of that as I do anything, and I hope and pray that he has this passion and excitement, and one day it clicks with him as well.
Let's talk about your traveling to other states. I know listeners saying, hey, I'm going to hunt this year, I'm going to hunt up in Maine, but then, I got a cousin down in Georgia, and son of a gun, I'm heading to Ohio. So they're really excited because they got 3 neat hunts coming up. What advice would you give the people that are heading down a state and away from their, as I say, their back 40?
For sure. I've been, fortunate and put the work in to be able to go out, and I've hunted 7 different states for whitetails, and out of those 7, I've hunted those at least 2 or 3 times over. One big thing is, man, always use your connections. Talk to people. Always find out, just the little stuff. What's in town? Is there a good place to eat? Is there something to do if you tag out? Just the small stuff to make, for some of us, this isn't just a hunting trip, it's a vacation, and you only get to do it once a year. So, like I said, just always network, always communicate. And another thing, guys, is always make sure you just double check state laws. Ask whoever you're hunting with. Michigan has a different opening day than, Missouri or Illinois. So, whether you're bow hunting or gun hunting, just make sure you find out the details of the regulations, and you'll have such a happier and safe trip without a doubt.
Now, are you talking going to other states? Do you do it DIY, or you do going to an outfitter or somebody that's hosting you?
If you do an outfitter or a host, they should know, so obviously ask them. But if you are doing a DIY hunt, by all means, guys, check the state Department of Natural Resource website or the Fish and Game Wildlife website. It will give you all the info you need. It may take you a few minutes to navigate, but make sure you double check that stuff. So, I think the same info applies to Bruce, to both ways of hunting, Bruce. So, just make sure you know the details. And again, it just makes the hunt a lot easier. And, once you go, I'm telling you, you'll sort of be addicted. It's just neat. Like I'm hunting Illinois this year, and, there's only one hotel where this little town is out in the middle of nowhere. And there's no other place to stay for, 20, 30 miles each direction. And, the past 3 years, we've got to see the same guys, multiple guys from Michigan. And it's just neat when you pull into this little motel and you see the Holland boys and the Grand Rapids boys, and you get to see the same guys. And I'm telling you, once you start going, you always want to have that, and it's just another neat thing that you get to do with hunting is meet these wonderful people from around the world that are doing the same thing you're doing.
No, I'm thinking that's a DIY hunt. Now, how do you decide the first time into a new location, tree stand location? How do you dope out the wind? Just talk us through, if you get just a couple of minutes here, to tell us your strategies, tips, techniques, lessons learned about traveling to a new location.
I'm a big advocate for miles on the ground, Bruce, and I don't think you can know a piece of property unless you walk it. So I'm just going to throw the tip out there. If you do that, you guys don't do it in October. Don't do it when you're hunting. But get there early, dedicate that extra time. Yeah, again, it's all about work. It's all about that blueprint for success. So you got to put the time in. I just went last weekend, actually, and we went on a very hot weekend. It was supposed to rain, so hopefully it washed away some of our scent. But we went in, we walked the property once over again, and just double-checked some of the spots we wanted to hunt, some of the stuff we've learned in the past, and then made adjustments from. But if we hadn't walked that property for 2 or 3 years in advance, figured out the wind situation, you got to know the direction of the property. Does it lay north-south? Does it lay east-west? You put all that together, and then you start, I use, like so many of us, Bruce, Google Earth or Bing Maps, and, you just start picking away at that puzzle and putting those pieces in place, and before you know it, I'm telling you, you can be within 100 yards of somewhere and then only have one adjustment to make, and you're in the money. And hopefully in a week's time, if you put those 40, 50 hours in stand, you're going to get a shot.
One thing I want our listeners to hear, a lot of planning, a lot of work, and I love what you said, Brandon. You have a blueprint to success, and that's how serious bow hunters are, or whitetail hunters are throughout North America. They're 365 hunters. Now, that might be shed hunting, that might be food plots, that might be setting their stands, that might be the actual hunt itself. But then, after the hunt's over, they're still working their trail cams. They're still picking up sheds. They're still figuring out, okay, how can I grow my herd? Even if it's in the 40. I just got a friend that just picked up a 20, but it's right perfectly situated. And so it's right in a transition zone. We know right where it is. And so by spending time researching, looking at the land that you hunt, you're going to become a better hunter. I'm not going to say you're going to score every year, but you're going to become a better hunter, but it takes time. Agree to that, Brandon?
Oh, absolutely. And to go back to, the beginning, Bruce, of when I started hunting, I'm telling you, that's all we knew was to walk a piece of ground, find a line, a trail, and hang there. And, probably miss with the 30-inch draw bow and that didn't fit me. But needless to say, that's even though that was simplicity at its finest, it's still to this day is a big indication of how we should hunt. You can't always just go on Google Maps and say that's where I need to be. You got to put some time in. You got to see it. You know what? A big track doesn't lie, or a trail that is beaten down coming up off a creek. Those don't lie. That's valuable information that we seem to overlook. So unless you're out there, again, like you just said, Bruce, putting in that time and working hard at it, odds are, you're not going to be successful. But, a lot of guys aren't willing to do that. That's just what I'm willing to do. And every year me and a buddy, we seem to do pretty good at it. So I'm not going to change something that's not broke, Bruce.
If it's working, keep doing it, and
Stick
just
with it.
and tweak it every single year because things change, habits change. The dominant buck might get shot this year, so now you got somebody that's up and coming, and maybe he is, or maybe he's not going to be the dominant buck. So things change. They change from August to September.
Let me add one thing to that.
Jump in there.
Sorry. Another thing, guys, if you're hunting, especially here in the Midwest, I don't get to go out west much, but another thing just to make your game a little bit tighter is always ask, if you see a neighbor out, ask. Like, hey, did you guys hunt this year? Did you kill something? Because a lot of us focus on this big deer that, is going to be 6.5 or 7.5. Well, guess what? Somebody so-and-so went out muzzleload December 15th and shot it in 5 minutes. Well, you basically were hunting a phantom, and you could be wasting time if you're patterning one deer that doesn't exist anymore, but you got 3 years of knowledge on that deer. Well, guess what? It does not matter anymore. So ask a neighbor, ask what they harvest, and, just have a conversation. Again, it goes back to networking and talking, and that's another thing we just seen as hunters. We hear it all the time. I'll tell you where I'm hunting, but I'm lying about it, right, Bruce? But we don't like to talk about it. But you know what? You don't have to sell yourself. Just go up and ask, like, how'd you guys do? Did you have fun? Anybody kill anything? And that will give you so much knowledge, and it helps you move forward and get prepared for the upcoming season. Because I'm telling you, just another tip, what happened last year and what deer were there, that's in the past. So you always have to be on top of it.
Yeah, agreed. I'm just thinking, we got a bunkhouse crew along the Bearable River in Wisconsin, and if we're in the river mill or fishies and we see our neighbors in there, we buy them a beer. And our crew, it's grown pretty big, but we got a lot of acreage that I'm fortunate to hunt. And I just take everybody to dinner one night, and it's not a big deal. So let me tell you, one in Walker, Union Center, Wisconsin, sounds like your place out in Kansas. There's 2 motels and one guy.
Right.
And a couple of bars, but you become familiar. You try to develop that relationship, and I believe so much is missed because we get so wound up. Oh, we got to go hunt, and I get commission on this farm, but just take a breath. Take a night off and go to the neighbors and say, hey, Mr. Smith, I'm buying down at Fishy's Grill tonight. I'd love to have you come. Bring your family, bring your boys. Hey, I've never talked to old George over there, but if you know him, have him come down. So what? You have 20 guys in a room. You spend $20 a piece. You spend a couple $100, but guess what? You made friends that the next time your deer goes on their property, it will be no problem getting permission to trespass. Plus, you never know. They say, well, why don't you hunt my land? Well, you never
know. Yeah.
You never asked them. So, and I'm not saying you invite 20 people to dinner, but you can invite 5 or 10 people to dinner and put a budget for that. Because if you do that over the long term in an area that you like and you're hunting, all of a sudden you're going to know just about everybody in town. When you show up in town, you bring some apples, you bring some ham. If a guy likes beer, bring him some beer. If he likes, a special tea, bring him tea. Find out about him. And so many times we miss that. We really do. And it's a key to keeping our hunting tradition alive. It's one of the keys that I believe in. Brandon?
Me too. I couldn't agree more, and that's one of the things, that's kind of why I brought that up, Bruce, is kind of like you maybe years ago, you had the tradition that I had with deer camp. Well, people get old, people don't come to deer camp anymore, but, that's kind of the way we do it now is, we pull up and we talk to the landowner next door, or we see the guys in the hotel. And some of these guys probably aren't hunting far from you. So, spend a few bucks, like Bruce said, and just have that camaraderie. And it's one of the things that I'm telling you that, when you go out of state and you do hunts like this, that you will highly appreciate and you'll remember those memories more than the 8 hours a day when you didn't see a deer.
Guys, it's really hard to say this, but we're well into the show today, and I just looked up at the counter, and we're at the point in time, Brandon, you got just a couple of minutes to give shout-outs to whomever, promotional, your sponsors, whoever you want. The mic's yours.
Well, thanks. Guys, as you know or don't know, but we talked early in the show, so if you would, please give us a look at the Outdoor Podcast Channel. You can find us on iTunes, outdoorpodcastchannel.com, and check my show. It's called Take Aim Outdoors. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. There's 52-plus shows at the moment out there for you guys to listen to. So, Bruce, all I can say is thanks so much for having me on, and hopefully we can do it again.
Hey, Brandon Hammond and your whole crew, I just wish you great success. The clock's ticking, and I'm getting excited about heading to Wisconsin and Iowa and other places in the Midwest and hanging out with some of my friends in Buffalo County and of course the bunkhouse crew along the Bearable River. But it's been a joy having you, Brandon Hammond, and the Outdoor Podcast Channel. Take a look, folks, and take a look at what Brandon is sharing on Take Aim Outdoors, the Bowhunters podcast. So on behalf of the Whitetail Rendezvous Nation, Brandon Hammond, it's been a joy and a privilege to have you on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
As your host at Whitetail Rendezvous, I want to thank each and every one of you for spending your time with us today. I look forward to sharing with you in the next episode more whitetail hunting tips, techniques, and stories. Until then, keep the sun at your back, the wind in your face, and always be patient.
If you have any tips, comments, or suggestions, or what we can do to improve, because we're here to serve you, let us know. Thanks for listening to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast at www.whitetailrendezvous.com.